mulai aja kali ya?
Ya deh, kayaknya kita langsung mulai aja deh, mau.
Oke, aku share screen bentar. Oke, selamat malam dan selamat datang kawan abroad semua di Abroadening webinar Maximize Your Potential Choosing the Right Host University for IISMA. Nah, kali ini kita bakal sama Davin di sini bahas strategi buat milih host university yang cocok buat kita nih, buat di IISMA nanti. Nah, sebelum itu mungkin kenalan dulu kali ya. Nama aku Maura, aku dari tim event Abroadening dan aku di sini ditemenin sama
Hai semuanya, nice to meet you. Hari ini aku Devi dan juga Maura bakal sama-sama nih bareng kalian nemenin selama 1,5 jam ke depan. Tapi nanti di akhir nih kayaknya mungkin bakal beneficial for some of us karena bakal ada short networking session buat teman-teman semua gitu. Jadi jangan lupa stay tune sampai akhir banget.
Bener banget, apalagi kalau aku lihat di ini ya di registration form udah pada banyak nih yang sering ikutan webinar Abroadening. Nah, mungkin kita bisa pakai chance networking session lagi nanti buat nggak cuma ikut-ikut webinar doang, tapi bisa saling kenal lagi satu sama lain.
Betul banget. Right. Kapan lagi gitu kan ya bisa networking kayak gini habis webinar.
Benar banget.
Oke. Mungkin next nih kita bakal ada short intro ya. Mungkin teman-teman di sini mungkin ada yang belum tahu nih Abroadening tuh apa sih gitu. Jadi mungkin ada Kak Ersin di sini yang bakal jelasin ke teman-teman semua. Kak Ersin, the stage is yours.
Thank you, Devi. Thank you, Maura. Halo semuanya, salam kenal. Nama aku Ersin. Aku di Abroadening jadi Marketing Director. And I'm so happy to have you all here. Hari ini mungkin 5 menit aja kali ya, jelasin dikit soal apa sih sebenarnya Abroadening itu gitu. Next. Oke, jadi sebenarnya visi dari misi dari Abroadening itu intinya adalah kita tuh kepengen banget nih ngajak teman-teman semua buat makin mawas gitu sama semua kesempatan-kesempatan untuk kuliah ke luar negeri gitu. Karena sebenarnya tuh kuncinya itu adalah critical thinking sama juga exploring your educational possibility gitu. Dan kita di sini kepengen banget nih ngasih banyak banget apa ya, poin-poin penting gitu. Sebenarnya yang dibutuhin buat ke luar negeri itu apa aja sih? Gitu. Next. Nah, sebenarnya siapa sih Abroadening itu? Our team is pretty big actually, 30 orang ya. Dan kita itu tersebar di seluruh dunia, ada yang dari UK, ada yang dari Indonesia. Kalau aku sendiri, aku sekarang ada di Jerman, ada yang di Australia, Singapura, sama di US gitu. Jadi kalau misalnya kalian pengen banget nih connect sama teman-teman Abroadening gitu, feel free buat reach us out di Discord, karena kita cukup aktif gitu di sana. Next. Yes, dan kita juga tersebar di banyak banget universitas ya. Ada yang dari UCL, ada yang dari Cambridge, ada yang di UGM, York, Regensburg, dan semua universitas yang bisa kalian lihat di sini. Jadi kalau kalian butuh insights buat ke luar negeri atau ke universitas-universitas ini, feel free buat reach us out. Okay, this is one of the problem yang kita pengen banget tackle nih, kan there is so much information out there about studying abroad, tapi aku bisa mulai dari mana ya? Terus aku bisa percaya sama siapa sih kalau mau keluar negeri gitu? That's why, next. Nah, kita mulai banget dari yang basic. Nah, tapi nggak cuma yang basic-basic aja nih, nggak cuma soal informasi scholarship apa aja sih yang buka atau gimana sih step by step buat ke luar negeri, tapi juga apa sih skill set yang kalian butuhin. Terus kalian bisa lihat dari role model siapa aja sih kalau mau ke luar negeri. Kayak contohnya ada Friday Feature. Nah ini waktu ini featuring Rifli yang minggu lalu juga sempat kasih webinar 2 minggu lalu. Dan this is just a glimpse of what all of the takeaways ya, the golden nuggets yang kalian bisa banget dapetin kalau nge-follow kita gitu. Next. Dan ada juga 15 menitan. Jadi kita partneran nih sama 15 menitan mulai kayak like last year gitu. Dan di sini kalian bisa banget dengerin podcast sama juga konten-konten video di 15 menitan dalam bentuk podcast in Spotify, Anchor, dan juga YouTube videos. Jadi please kalian kalau misalnya nggak follow ketinggalan banyak deh. Oke, next. Terus habis itu selain dari semua ini, kita juga partneran dengan banyak sekolah. Contohnya ada UGM, terus BINUS, dan sekolah-sekolah yang bisa kalian lihat di sini, dan institusi-institusi lain. Jadi feel free kalau misalkan ngerasa, aduh kayaknya cocok banget nih kalau organisasi aku bisa partneran dan collab sama Abroadening, atau kayaknya asik sih kalau misalnya himpunan aku bisa kayak undang Abroadening. Feel free buat reach us out karena kita open banget nih buat kolaborasi kayak gitu. Next. And then, how do we ensure that our content is as accurate as possible? Yes, karena mereka yang riset tentang informasi itu adalah mereka yang benar-benar kuliah di sana. Student-student yang udah ngerasain gimana sih suka duka kuliah di negara-negara ini gitu. That's why kita trusted banget gitu, and not biased. Dan kalau misalnya kalian masih punya pertanyaan soal apapun tentang webinar ini, tentang IISMA, tentang apapun, feel free banget buat join our Discord server, karena next week kita bakalan ada sesuatu di Discord. Jadi kalau kalian belum punya Discord, make sure bikin dari sekarang, terus join deh Discord kita gitu. Well, I think that's all from me. Thank you so much semuanya. I hope you guys are having fun today. Dari Davin juga, semangat teman-teman semua.
Oke, nah setelah tadi kita dengerin nih ya, very insightful and lengkap banget lah intro tentang Abroadening dari Kak Ersin. Nah, mungkin ini kayaknya perfect timing nggak sih, Dev, buat kita move on ke materi malam hari ini?
Bener banget, kayak udah pada nggak sabar juga kan, mumpung mana lagi besok ini nih, host universities-nya bakal kelihatan semua. Jadi, let's welcome our speaker today, Davin.
Yay.
Okay, thank you. Hi everyone, my name is Davin. Pertama-tama thank you untuk Abroadening udah menyediakan platform ya untuk bisa menjelaskan tentang choosing the right host university. I feel like during my start of IISMA selection, if I was given this, then I perhaps might have, make it much more easy for me to be able to choose my host university. Karena kemarin itu pas aku seleksi IISMA itu, I started from nothing. So pas aku udah dapet program mentoring pun aku belum tahu mau milih universitas apa, persiapannya diperlukan apa-apa aja. Jadi terakhirnya agak mepet sih. Fortunately, I still passed, but I feel like there is a lot that I should have considered. So today, I will be sharing a bit about my experience as an IISMA awardee in the University of Warwick, UK. Jadi, a bit of context. Last year, I was a student representative for the IISMA Warwick cohort in 2022, and we are the first batch for University of Warwick. And we are also one of the longest.
Wait, bentar, kayaknya dari Davin lagi ada itu kali ya. Oh, he's back, I think. Oke. Udah masuk
Ini
lagi.
pemadaman listrik. Okay, so let me continue. So we are also one of the last to leave the UK, and we are a cohort of 10 students. So I hope that my experience will serve as a good insight into the IISMA selection process. So before we start, a bit of disclaimer. So disclaimer number one, I'm a nerd, so I kind of go down the rabbit hole a bit. So I will try to keep it to 40 minutes, and I would love to take down questions since I'll be sharing a lot of my stories. And for the slides and the worksheet, it will be shared in the end. So please don't feel pressured to write everything down, because I think I wrote a lot because I know that the slides will be shared. So maybe it will serve as a reference when you're choosing. So don't feel pressured to think about everything in this. presentation. And also some of it might not be relevant to you in case we have different priorities. So again, don't feel pressured to remember all of it. It will be shared. And also maybe focus on your own context and question, because for the points that I will state in this presentation, it will be presented very tidily in a worksheet made by Abroadening. And also the last disclaimer is that I might be biased because I have certain things that I like better, but I will do my best to share which part is my opinion and which part is my reflection. So today's presentation, I will separate into 4 parts. The first is how different region could mean totally different IISMA experience. The second is my story, and then the IISMA selection process, and lastly, how to use the Abroadening worksheet. So the first things first, we'll start with things that applicants often overlook. So after talking with several of my other IISMA friends and also student representative from other IISMA universities, I realized that there are certain things that applicants often don't realize that is going to happen. So there are 3 things. The first is interdisciplinarity versus linearity. It sounds very complicated, but it basically means that there are certain modules that will make it hard for you to convert when you are back home. So for instance, I am taking animal science. However, in work, what I study is climate and entrepreneurship. So even until today, I am actually still negotiating with my department to remove some of the modules that I have to take so I can graduate in 8 semesters. So even though IISMA itself forces our own university to acknowledge the 20 SKS, however, there is still often times where the bureaucracy just makes it impossible for them to do so. So maybe you will need to consider this depending on your academic period, because if your priority is to graduate on time, if you're trying to graduate in 8 semester, in 7 semester, let's say you're studying medicine, or you have certain dates that you want to catch, let's say the graduation date will be on February, or your thesis defense must be done by January, then you need to make sure that the timeline of IISMA suits your own timeline. So for instance, let's say in Indonesia, I think it's more common for our academic year to start in the middle. But what if you are in a host uni that starts in the middle of your 4th semester and ends in your 5th semester? That means that you will need to take 2 semestral breaks, which will definitely postpone your graduation. So take that into consideration when you are thinking about which university to choose. Other than that, also think about when the academic transcript will be sent, because this is the problem we encounter. So some of my friends has already thought about this. One of them is studying medicine. So he actually did his thesis defense in the UK. However, the problem is the transcript will not be sent until March, so his graduation is delayed. So you can actually discuss this. Usually, if you talk it early to the international office, then sometimes they will make an exception for you. Either that, or you can also talk to the international office of your host IISMA university, and sometimes they will help it so that your assignments will be graded first. That's also possible. So that's the second point. And the third one is what I believe to be most important, is the cohort size. So the thing about cohort size is it looks something that is just simply quota in the IISMA program. However, I think that the cohort size actually has a big impact on shaping your IISMA experience. So the first is about what class will you be in. So apparently, IISMA, being the dynamic program that it is, has different studying methods for different host university. So for instance, there is 3 types. The first is if you are part of a big cohort, let's say 40 or 50 people, then you will be placed in your own class. That's a possibility. So there is some IISMA that they are part of their own very own class. So they don't mingle with the locals, they don't mingle with the international students in your class. So the lecturer will just come to teach IISMA students. Second possibility is you are put into an international class. So you study with fellow exchange students and just not the locals. And lastly is you study in the local class, just like any other student. So depending on how much exposure you want and depending on the program, this is also one thing to consider. If you come in the The last year in UK, it varies from 4. So there's a host university with only 4 participants, all the way to 40 participants. So that is an aspect to think of. Other than that is also where will you stay? So I think I'm in a very unique position in which of all the UK and Ireland university, Warwick is the only one that did not provide student accommodation for us. So we are not living in their dorm. So we are asked to find our own accommodation basically. And what happened was we tried 4 different things. So we stayed in accommodation off campus. And then once on campus, we stayed in the accommodation in which separates us into 3 different buildings, and we stayed in a single building. So, even just that has quite the big impact, I think. So during our stay off campus and in a separate building, I think we talked more with international students around there. So since it's a student accommodation, so we will often meet international students in the kitchen, and we can actually bond with them more. Meanwhile, in the single flat building, in the student on-campus accommodation, what happened was that we got closer to each other, which I think is also a very good thing, because your IISMA friends are friends who you will meet again when you go back to Indonesia, right? But there's also something to consider, like just how big your cohort size will also have an impact on how close you will be. And also travel. So the logistics of traveling with 10 people and with 40 people is different. And also, lastly, is the IISMA challenges. So I feel like sometimes you forget that we have to do IISMA challenges. Me personally have, wronged a few times in which we forget about the challenges. And I feel that, I cannot imagine doing the challenges with only 4 persons. I think it'll be way harder in comparison to, let's say, you have 20, 30 people working on one challenge. So that's for cohort size. So now we will move on to crucial parameters. So from this point onwards, the points that I will mention is actually also inside the worksheet. So you don't really have to take notes on this. You can listen, and we can write down questions if you have any later. So the first that I put in is, I think, the most important, which is location, location, and location. So I think the location decides how much you can blend with the culture and how much you can immerse yourself inside the culture. So the first is language. So I would say, I might be biased, but I would say that, being able to speak the same dominant language in the region is very important in an exchange, because it allows us to really understand the culture inside that country. So maybe I would suggest that you are confident in being able to adapt, especially in countries that first language might not be English, because I think that, let's say you take a month or 2 months to adapt, that takes away from your exchange experience. But then again, that is also a very good way for you to learn a new language in itself. So I think some of my friends also stated that their second choice is somewhere in Europe, and they don't mind the language difference because they like learning a new language, and that's part of the appeal for them. Next is geography. So geography here, I would like to touch upon 3 points. First is visa. So there's the difference of visiting a country versus visiting a continent. If you're coming to Europe, then you're visiting the whole European continent. But let's say me in UK, all I can travel to is at most Scotland, Wales, and Ireland, and not even the whole Ireland, just the northern part of Ireland, because it requires a different visa to visit the southern Ireland part. So next is living costs. So not all cities have equal living costs, right? Even though IISMA have tried their best to accommodate to them by giving different living allowances, but some countries are just affected by, issues that might not be accounted in the calculation of IISMA. So for instance, Dublin. So Dublin in Ireland, it has actually quite the high rent for UK area, even though it's considered as a normal city. So the living allowance we receive is not as high as London in Dublin. But in Dublin, you will spend almost 60% of your budget to pay for rent. Meanwhile, in Coventry, I think we paid for 40% instead. So, the 20% difference can also affect your lifestyle there. So, and the last one is COVID restriction. So I hope next year, COVID restriction will be lax around the world. But take into consideration how COVID restriction might also reduce the overall duration of your IISMA program, and also maybe additional fees. And lastly is there's demography. So demography being, are you living in a student city or are you living in a big city? Are you surrounded by also students, or are you living in, let's say, pensioner city? Because I think the pace of life, the events will be different. Living in a student city, a lot of shops, a lot of events will be catered to students. So let's say a lot more student accommodations, a lot more accommodations, cheap accommodations, and also, let's say, specialty shops, let's say Asian markets and halal grocer will be more available in student city. And lastly is the weather. So maybe think about your health conditions. Are you suited for cold weather? Do you have any pollen allergies, sinusitis perhaps? So these are the 4 things that I will take into consideration for the first point, location. Next is academic experience. So this one is actually quite similar to the one I previously mentioned. So first is class demography. So basically, are you in a full IISMA class or are you mingling with other local students? Other than that is also the consideration of, are you in a single department or multiple department taking that module together? So I think this is more to module selection instead of uni selection. So after you pick your uni, maybe you might consider this when deciding which module to pick. Because the unique thing about IISMA is, since we are a partnership, so we get to pick classes from first year, from second and third year. So me personally, I studied in 3 different modules with 3 different characteristics. First module I took was from a first year module. So my classmates were all first year students. Then the second module I took was a final year module. So all of them are ready to graduate and they already have the prerequisite knowledge for the module. And lastly, I took a course that is available for all departments. So I met with students from economics, from sustainability, from politics, from sports science. So it's all mixed together. So each of these provide a different learning experience. And well, inherently, since final year modules will be harder than first year, you can kind of decide like how difficult do you want your courses to be and what kind of pace do you want to tackle your academic experience with IISMA. So I think that's also quite interesting to consider, especially let's say you have other priorities. Let's say you want to volunteer more, you want to focus more on non-academic activities during your exchange. Second is the type of class, or the academic styles. Is it more of a lecture? Is it more of a seminar with discussions? Or is it more of a workshop with practical skills? Or do you get to visit or have trips outside the classroom? And lastly is the duration of the IISMA program itself. So I think IISMA program ranges from 3 months up to 6 months. So you can kind of decide also for that. And the last parameter is non-academic experience. So I feel like 3 to 6 months is not that long in terms of studying. So I wouldn't say that, although it's very nice to be able to study in world-class university, learning about the best, the most cutting-edge knowledge that they can provide. However, I feel like just 3 months is not enough to learn something, especially if it's something that you've never learned before. So I would say that a lot of the learning comes also from the non-academic experience. So maybe think about your travels. So for instance, for me, myself, I feel like after traveling the UK, what I realized is the UK is actually a very diverse place. Like going from different regions, from different areas, like you will see how different UK people are. But then I also realized just how diverse Indonesia is. So it made me realize that, maybe in the UK, if you go to the northernmost part and you go to the westernmost part, then you can see different people. But in Indonesia, you can just visit different neighboring cities and they will already have very different culture. So, that made me realize about myself, like just how unique we are as Indonesian. Just self-reflections like that. It's very interesting, especially when you travel and you see like just how different cultures are. Other than that is also events. So events like conference, concert, TED Talks, volunteering, I think one interesting instance is in the recent podcast, if anyone know the Endgame podcast by Pak Gita. So in that podcast with Pak Nadim, he talks about how he was helped by a volunteer when he was in US, and that was an IISMA student. So, very interesting opportunities available for you. And maybe that can come into your decision-making process. And lastly is the history and facilities. So let's say you're an art student, maybe you would want to visit a museum, maybe you would want to visit a park or any landmarks. Let's say you're interested in certain places. Let's say in UK, there's the Lake District, in which a lot of writers and poems base their arts on. So maybe you would like to visit the Lake District. For me, I'm an animal science student. So I visited Edinburgh, Scotland, and I met the Highland cow, which is one of the highlights of my trip. And that is for the parameters. So now I think I'll slow down a bit and I'll talk a bit about my story. So this is how I structured my decision last time. So there is 4 reasons why I chose Warwick. First is because it's a new Russell Group uni. So new in 2 senses. New because it was the first time that it is part of the IISMA lineup, and new because it's a younger university in the Russell Group. So for those who doesn't know, Russell Group is kind of like the Ivy League or the Big 8 in Australia. But yeah, I thought that since it's a new university, maybe other people will know about it, especially after reading about Warwick. Like, I feel like the digital branding that they have is not that good. So if you look up in the internet, like Warwick doesn't look that prestigious, even though it is actually like one of the best schools in the UK, one of the best business schools in the UK, and so on and so on. So that's my first consideration. Second is the courses, because one of it is a bit linear to mine, and the other 2 is similar to the interest that I have at the time. And next is the location. One of my goals in IISMA is to travel a lot. So I realized that Warwick is conveniently placed in the center of UK. So it's right below Birmingham, 1 hour away from London, and you can basically travel to a lot of places. So that is also why. And lastly is the interesting societies, because Warwick has almost 200 society, from Taylor Swift society, squash societies, to more niche sports societies, because it has one of the best sports facilities in the England area. So I can join sports like lacrosse, canoe, field hockey, and just weird sports that I get to try. So what I realized after my experience is first some of the pros and the cons, which I will share. So hopefully maybe you can realize that, okay, maybe this is as important for me or not as important for me. So first is Warwick is located in Coventry. So it's a student city. So the pros is that it's very diverse, very accommodating. Like, everyone is a student there, everyone is friendly. But the cons is, because it's a student city, there is not much to do, which can be a plus point and a negative point. The plus point is a lot of my friends enjoy that it's a student city, like everything is maybe cheaper and just much more accommodating. Meanwhile, some of my friends find it boring, like they wanted a place with more events going on. So maybe they will enjoy bigger cities. And also the weather. So Coventry is unique in the sense that it has very stable weather. So the cold is not as cold and the warm is not as warm. So the minus of that is, because it is not as cold, I didn't get to see snow. So when Liverpool is snowing, all I get to do is just watch the Instagram stories of my friends there. So perhaps that might also be good though, because some of my friends who has allergies to cold find that it is more bearable in comparison to other regions of the UK. So that is also a consideration for the weather. And now maybe some of my observations about the UK. So maybe one of the culture shocks that I experienced is the drinking culture. So drinking is very common, drinking and farting, very common in university in the UK. So for instance, kitchen. Our dorm kitchen, which is communal, so everyone shares the same kitchen. is very often used for parties. So people would just come to the kitchen and have party all night long, even though that is a common kitchen that everybody can use. So might be inconsiderate, but that's just part of the culture there. So everybody, that happens really often. And like maybe some scary experiences such as just meeting drunk people. But generally that is something that maybe you want to consider. But then again, it can also be a very interesting experience, because I've had friends who are afraid of that, but also friends who tried going, let's say, to pubs and just experience the vibe, even though they don't drink, they don't they don't consume alcohol. They just come and drink Coca-Cola and just enjoy the vibes there. So I think that's also a very nice way to like open up your perspective and just train your tolerance to differences. Other than that is also the culture of maybe cooking and eating out. So let's say in certain places, let's say Taiwan, I remember my friends from Taiwan needs to eat out every single day. Meanwhile, in the UK, almost all student accommodation is equipped with a kitchen because it's just so expensive to eat out. But the pros is I get to cook Indonesian food when I miss home. The cons is I need to cook every single day. So that's also a unique observation that I have. And other than that is also the teaching styles. So in the UK, I think there is little test, more essay. So a lot of my friends in engineering is very surprised by the requirement to write 3,000 word essay, 4,000 word essay when they've never written one their whole life. They're more used to tests, and so am I. I find it hard to write essays, especially when discussing about sociological topics. And lastly, I think the most important is comfort zone. I think like living abroad offers us a very interesting opportunity to change the way we live. What I mean is, let's say you're a minority here, you can be a majority in a different country, or maybe you're a majority in a different country, but you can try living as a minority. Some of my friends can also keep in touch with their roots, which I think is very interesting experience and quite touching, to be honest. So for instance, me, myself, I'm from a double minority, so I'm Buddhist and I'm Chinese. So coming to UK was quite interesting for me because I will meet all these Chinese students. They will think that I'm Chinese. They will come up to me and speak Mandarin to me, but I don't know how to reply. And in a sense, that makes me question like, who am I? What am I? Am I Indonesian? Am I Chinese? Or some of my friends from Taiwan would actually share to their stories like how it's very interesting how they are now like the majority, and how it's so easy to go to temples when it's kind of rare in Indonesia, and just how they feel like they can finally get in touch with their roots. So it's not all about studying, not about travel, but you can also get in touch with the roots, get in touch with try living as a minority or as a majority. So yeah, a lot of these cultural immersion things that I think is very important part of the whole exchange program. Okay, there is my story. Now we go to a more technical part of how IISMA sorts your choices. So this is a screenshot I received a few days ago from my friend who joined one of the IISMA socialization. So I think it's very interesting how this year there is much more university. I hope that there is much more quota also for these universities. But basically, I would like to present a case study. So first is about popularity versus difficulty. So some of the universities in IISMA are just much more popular. Let's say in the UK, there's the University of Liverpool with almost 700 or 800 applicants. And there is Hanyang in Korea with almost 1,000. To put into context, 1,000 is almost one in 7 applicants of IISMA. So that's a lot of people trying to get into one single university. But since the website is not online yet, the Kemendikbud.IISMA website is not available yet, there is actually a trick. So this is the website that I registered in, site.isma.id. So this is the old website, and I think they're testing out the prototype for the host university inside this website. So if you follow this link, what you will see is if you click in one of those universities, they will present you with last year's statistics. Since this is a prototype, this might not be the final data. Just a reminder, you need to type in the whole link, not just site.isma.id, because if you click site.isma.id, you'll be redirected to the new a website. But if you click the whole URL in, you will be presented with the old website, in which if you click any of this information, you can see the intake 2022 data. So based on my experience, this is accurate. This is the data of Warwick, and I think it's quite accurate. So maybe you can consider it tonight if you want a head start. Yes, that's something that I found out accidentally. But okay, here is an interesting study case. So we have Hanyang University and we have Korea University. This is arguably the two best university, but Korea University is also arguably the best university in Korea. So we will think that Korea University is harder to get into rather than Hanyang. I feel like some of my friends who I asked, why do they register to Hanyang? Some of them say that I'm not confident in trying for Korea, so I want to go to Hanyang instead. So if you see based on this data, you can actually see that both of them will take in 50 students for IISMA. But one of them has 900 applicants, another one has 500. So that's 1 out of 10 versus 1 out of 20. And if you see the scores, you can see that the awardees who got into Hanyang, the minimum is 3.3, meanwhile Korea is 3.2, and the maximum is 3.9, meanwhile Hanyang is 4. So looking at the GPA, it's actually harder to go into Hanyang compared to Korea University. Meanwhile, if you look at the Duolingo English test, then maybe there are some outliers who scored 150 on IELTS 8. But as you can see here, just because Korea University is a more prestigious university, it does not necessarily mean that it will be harder to get into compared to popular university. So maybe try considering that. Maybe a lot of people is also thinking, okay, I'm scared of applying to KU. Maybe I want to try Hanyang. But that's also what 925 other people think. So yes, that's also another consideration you need to make. And another caveat is that you can kind of be upgraded. So in Warwick, there is a friend of mine who chose Liverpool as their first choice and Warwick as their second choice. So I'm not trying to say that Warwick is better than Liverpool, but in terms of ranking, Warwick is higher than Liverpool. And if you look at the statistics, the selection process is also tighter for Warwick. Granted, Warwick has 100-something applicants and Liverpool has 700 of them. But what happened is he got rejected from Liverpool, but he got into Warwick, which was his second choice. So I think that's also quite interesting that IISMA will put you into the university that suits you better. So for those who are maybe still thinking about which university to put as the first choice, as the second choice, then sometimes maybe it doesn't really matter that much. Just choose the options that you will not regret. Because if IISMA thinks that you are more suited for the second, maybe they will put you inside the second, even though the second might be a higher ranking or a different area. And this is just additional stuff that I don't really know where to put inside the presentation. So basically, not all uni is equal. I will just discuss about some of the privilege of some universities that are observed in the UK. So maybe you can consider this when thinking, what are the other plus points? So maybe you have 4 universities that you like, but you don't know which 2 to decide or which 3 to decide. Then maybe these are some of the things that can be your deal breaker. So first is the different modules availability. So the thing is, last year, one of the university in UK rejected their students to pick the courses that IISMA provide. So they require prerequisite knowledge to the course. So if you want to take Politics 102, you need Politics 101, or you need politics related courses in your home university. So if you're studying art, you cannot study politics, even though that's part of what IISMA program is about. So, sometimes that happens. There is also the case of number of courses. So IISMA asks you to pick 4 courses, right? But some university will only let you pick 3. Some, like Warwick, will let you pick 3, and then they give you 1 mandatory class on top of that. Last year, we got academic support, which is actually quite useful. So they teach us how to write the essay. They help us review the essay that we're going to submit. So quite supportive of Warwick to do that. But that is also one of the things that the courses might be different from IISMA, although most of the time it is quite similar. And next is, just privilege, like the Young Scot card. So this is a very interesting privilege from Scottish University. So any Scottish student, any student studying in Scotland, has this Young Scot card, which will allow you to get free bus ticket to the whole UK. So they can go from Edinburgh to London for free. Granted, that's 8 hours of commute, but it's free. And there is also free insurance. So students from Ireland do not need to pay for their insurance. Meanwhile, us from England, we need to pay for our own insurance. There is also international office support. So some international office will provide shuttle bus for the students from the airport. Some will even provide IISMA only event. So like regional tour, like tour around the whole UK, tour around West Midlands area. There is also meet, social, and additional classes like those provided by Warwick in the supplementary classes. And also there is local schemes. So in the UK, we have SCONAL. SCONAL is a partnership between many different UK universities, which allow you to visit their library. So you can visit the library, you can get a library card. So it feels kind of like collecting cards, you know, Pokemon cards. So that's what I did with my friends. So we just visited different libraries and we asked for a card. So we collect the cards from different universities. And lastly is the facilities. So some university might have better facilities, like what I keep on saying. Warwick has one of the best sports facilities in the whole England, but we also have limited access to it because the monthly fee to go inside that sports facility is £50 per month. So it's very expensive. Meanwhile, some university, they offer it for free. You can come in, you can swim, you can go to their sauna for free. So, you know, it's balanced. And the best way to know about these local perks and privileges is to immediately contact the local IISMA. So if you are interested, let's say in IISMA Liverpool, then try contacting the IISMA team there. Like ask how is it for this, and this. And if there is no IISMA last year, then contact the PPE of that university. So that way you can get to know like these small things that might not have been obvious at first. So to close my presentation, I just want to remind all of you that, you know, choosing your university is not just about the experience, but it's also important because you need to justify it in your essay. Like choosing your university is very important, that you put a lot of thought into it, because it shows IISMA that you don't choose this university just because it's prestigious, but you choose it because you can get something from it. You have a plan of what you want to do with it. And, you know, it suits your narrative. And I think that's also very important to do when you're writing your essay for IISMA. So how will you blend with the locals? What do you plan to do there? The questions provided by IISMA is basically representative of this process. So think about how you want to choose your uni, and hopefully you will also have a very nice essay. So I think that's all for my presentation today. I will now pass it back to the MC so we can take in questions.
Oke, wow, thank you so much, Davin. Itu kayak udah lengkap banget from start to finish with all the factors yang kita need to consider before choosing host university for IISMA. Ya nggak sih, Dev?
Benar banget. Menurut aku nih penting banget sih buat teman-teman tadi mungkin udah terlalu fokus gitu ya. Karena super technical tadi yang udah dipaparin sama Davin ya. Mungkin kita bisa next nih. Mau?
Boleh. Nah, ini di Slido kita udah banyak juga teman-teman yang give questions. Mungkin kita boleh mulai jawabin satu-satu kali ya. Okay, so you mentioned that you also, you mentioned that you also choose Boston as your choice beside Warwick. Can you also share how you decide which one was your first and second choice? Kayaknya masih mute.
Oh, okay.
Okay.
So yeah, I choose Boston as my second choice because I wanted to study business-related major, and Warwick is one of the best in the UK. I think it's just below Oxford or Cambridge. And my consideration is I like the UK environment better than the US environment. So I picked Warwick on top of Boston. But I would have been equally happy with Boston.
Okay, maybe Devi boleh baca yang selanjutnya.
Oke, mungkin kita next nih, yang kedua nih ada, I'm a science student but would love to take social majors. How do you think it will affect my chance of getting in? Kayaknya aku juga relate sih sama ini. Gimana nih, Mas Davin?
Sebenarnya agak relate sih, karena rupanya kan I registered for entrepreneur, food system, and climate change. Oke, jadi climate change itu memang ya sesuai science, climate change science. But apparently food system and entrepreneurship modulnya itu bukan cuma itu, tapi nama lengkap modulnya itu entrepreneurship a critical perspective. Jadi rupanya pelajari entrepreneurship tapi sebagai seorang sosiologi. Jadi mempelajari sebuah sosok entrepreneur. Jadi terakhir jadi kelas sosiologi sih. Dan untuk yang food system itu juga kita lebih membahas tentang food sovereignty sih. Jadi isu sosial terkait dengan food system. Awalnya agak susah sih untuk belajar tentang sosiologi itu. Cuman I think it will actually be beneficial if you can explain like why is it that you want to take this kind of module. Especially, let's say in your essay you say you have studied all of the theoretical side. You have studied from a science perspective, but now you want to see it from a social perspective because you think that's equally as important when trying to generate a solution for the complex problem that is blah 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 blah. I think I kind of write that also in my essay last year, as in why do I want to take entrepreneurship, but from a sociological perspective, because after learning it from a maybe a more theoretical perspective, I've never seen it as a sociology problem, like how we can tackle food problems through a sociological lens. So I think it won't have much effect on whether you can get in or not, because that's part of the IISMA experience and part of IISMA goal to train interdisciplinarity. So yeah, I think go for it.
Oke, kayaknya emang IISMA ini emang encourage future awardees-nya buat take courses yang outside of their study fields ya, kalau nggak salah ya. Oke, jadi nggak apa-apa teman-teman, coba aja ikutin kata hati kalian mau ambil courses apa. Terus mungkin next nih bisa Maura.
Oke, mungkin aku bacain yang kedua ini ya. According to your experience, which one is better to get accepted? Just the first and second option of university in the same country or in different country?
Untuk ini nggak gitu bisa jawab sih. But personally, I put in both country dari dua negara yang beda. Menurutku selagi kita bisa menjelaskan dengan baik kenapa dan ada benang merahnya sih. Misalnya untuk aku kan, aku pilih Warwick sama Boston karena dua-duanya very good business schools. So it makes sense. Tapi kalau misalnya satu itu, misalnya kita mau belajar climate science, satunya tiba-tiba mau belajar film and art, kan kurang berhubungan ya. Jadi nanti di essay kita juga susah untuk jelasin apa yang pertama itu mau ambil climate change, tapi yang kedua rupanya tiba-tiba mau jadi film. Mungkin dari Maura atau Devi ada yang bisa ditambahin?
Rasanya mirip sih. Aku juga relate tentang itu karena aku juga apply for IISMA last year. Dan aku dulu pilih dua host uni itu di dua country yang jauh berbeda. Satunya di New Zealand, satunya di UK. Tapi basically aku di both in my essay dan juga di interview aku juga nyari benang merah yang tadi kayak course yang aku pilih itu basically untuk satu tujuan yang sama gitu sih. Jadi kurang lebih sama. Oke, mungkin langsung ke pertanyaan berikutnya kali ya. Ini, did you join any student clubs there?
I did join. Aku ikut language society, jadi bisa ketemu sama ya murid-murid yang tertarik belajar bahasa sih. Soalnya kan that's like one of the easiest way to get friends. Just I can speak bahasa Indonesia. Anyone want to practice? Biasanya ada satu atau dua yang kepo gitu. Other than that, since my hobby is playing the trumpet, I joined the trumpet society, so get to meet like-minded people, and also quite a lot of events usually. Misalnya Christian Union itu ada ngadain international cafe, jadi dapat makanan gratis basically, makanya ikut. Tapi ya dari sana juga dapat khotbah tentang Christianity, which is also quite interesting, and also just a lot sih. Aku ada ikut meditation session juga, ada ya. Pernah ikut sports community rock up, so itu acara di mana orang nggak ikut klubnya bisa datang untuk ketemu dan main bareng. So yeah, I think tergantung university, but personally untuk di Warwick sih sangat di welcome ya, walaupun exchange student mau ikut semua juga nggak apa-apa, nggak ada dibatasin.
So moving on ya to the next question. Ini kayaknya juga jadi pertanyaan untuk banyak orang ya. One of our essay as our plans to engage with local community. Could you share how did you enter this one? I think it's related to the uni choices too, right? Gimana nih kalau menurut Davin?
Kalau dari aku sendiri sih, I mentioned society first because I think that's one of the easiest way, and I think especially in the UK at least, a lot of people socialize through societies and not inside class. So I actually find it quite hard to make friends in class, but quite easy in society because you already have a starting base of what you're interested in. Other than that, I also mentioned, I think, cooking, because I know I'll be staying in a student accommodation. So I told them, I like cooking. I will bring this. I will cook inside my accommodation and I will share it. So I think a lot of people also mention cooking, but after coming here, yeah, cooking is one of the ways I bonded with friends here. So quite effective.
Okay, mungkin kalau tadi you mentioned that you joined the student club, the language society, dan lain-lain, itu juga dimasukin nggak kayak saya kemarin?
Oh yeah, good point. Ada, dan itu I think it's very important that you show them that you research. Jadi kemarin di essay aku ada tulis, I read from the website, I contacted the society to make sure that exchange students can join, and then I listed like the top 3 societies I want to join, and I already confirmed that even as an exchange student coming just for 4 months, I can join the society itself.
Okay, that's interesting ya, maksudnya sampai reach out dulu ya, make sure kalau itu kita bisa ikutan gitu. Oke, mungkin bisa lanjutin nih, mau?
Oke, mungkin ini menarik sih. If you can go back, what would you like to improve during your application?
Application process. Jadi tahun lalu karena it's not really clear. I think like every year there is changes made. So last year tiba-tiba ada CV dan itu belum persiapan sama sekali. Jadi itu CV kemarin banyak yang kosong sih karena mepet. Jadi nggak sempat untuk kerjain CV-nya. Cuman I think for essay at the time, I think I did my best for my essay. I asked, I think, at least 3 to 4 person to help me review, and I corrected quite a lot of it. EPT juga, I think I did my best already. So yeah, mostly just preparing documents, preparing for CV.
Okay, so basically in applying for IISMA, kita juga harus istilahnya expect the unexpected lah ya, karena pasti ada kayak banyak twist.
Karena bisa tiba-tiba dan nggak ada pengumuman.
True. Okay. Mungkin Devi mau bacain yang selanjutnya?
Oke. Yang ini lanjutannya nih, ada pertanyaan tentang I'm a cultural science student and one of my proposals to take IISMA is I can do cultural art show in Europe. Well, I think that's cool. Which uni do you think related for my proposals?
Uni. Kurang tahu. But I think like culture mungkin Europe, tapi nggak tahu sih, nggak bisa bilang. I think it's better to just wait for the official host uni, or maybe look for organizations that you like. Maybe there is a certain organization based in a certain country that you really like, that maybe you want to try volunteering in. You can reach them out, like, is there any event that I can volunteer in? I'm a student, or maybe someone, an influencer, a public figure that you really admire.
Yeah, I think that's one of the tips. Dan mungkin to add on juga kayak nanti setelah di sana gitu, teman-teman bisa research lagi kayak Faculty of Arts mungkin, terus kontak profesor-profesornya, kayak aku punya purpose ini nih buat datang ke sini gitu. Biasanya mereka banyak banget yang willing to help us gitu dan provide us with the resources as well. Oke. Jadi sampai mana? Oke, yang ini kali ya. There are so many factors to consider. Kayak tadi ada demografi, ada kotanya kayak gimana, ada uninya, rankingnya, dan sebagainya. What is your top 3?
Maura itu worksheet-nya udah di-share gak ya?
Udah ada
Udah
di
di-share.
grup WhatsApp.
Okay. I think the worksheetnya aku place personal at first ya, because I believe that the personal points is the most important karena itu non-negotiable. Kayak misalnya kita mau lulus kapan, timeline-nya sesuai nggak sama timeline kita. I think that's non-negotiable. So I would say that go with the low-hanging fruit. Pilih hal-hal yang udah pasti gitu. Misalnya I want to graduate by February, jadi at least January atau misalnya December udah harus balik ke Indonesia. I think that's most important. Then other than that, I think you need to decide on your priorities. Like, do you want the prestige? Are you planning to go for a postgraduate? In that case, like maybe studying in the same country as your target university is very useful. Or maybe do you want the prestige? Do you want to be an alumni of one of the best business school in the world, maybe? Or maybe you want to take certain courses that's just available or famous in that university. So I think it depends a lot on your priorities.
Oke, that's true sih. Oke, nah mungkin karena ini udah banyak juga yang kita ambil dari Slido, mungkin sekarang aku sama Devi pengen open floor-nya ke teman-teman di sini buat yang mau tanya langsung nih ke Davin, mungkin di Zoom ini boleh langsung raise hand aja. Mungkin nggak soal uni, mungkin ada tips and trick IISMA yang lain. Oke, ini udah ada. Pertama boleh nih dari Titan Mirani.
All right, am I audible?
Mhm.
Okay, can I ask the questions that I put in the Q&A?
Sure, I think that's okay.
All right. So, is it possible for me to choose design courses as I have design experience during my organization in the campus, while my background is English education? So, the course to art and design, but my background is English education, so it is not really related to each other. Okay, thank you.
Okay, just to confirm back the question, so you're wondering if it's okay for you to pick design even though you are English literature.
Yes.
Okay. I think it's completely fine. I think it depends on your university. So are you planning to convert the scores from that design major into your university, and does your university allow that? So in Warwick, we have a student from English literature, but she's studying food system, climate change, and well-being, I think. So completely different, no relation at all to literary science, it's natural science, and that's okay. Like you get to choose that. That's the point of IISMA, I think. But the question is, will that be acknowledged when you go back to Indonesia? For my friend, she didn't mind because she has no plan to convert that. She already have the required credits to graduate. She just wanted to learn, and she liked Warwick for that.
All right, thank you for the answer.
Okay, maybe we can move on to Diva.
Davin, my name is Diva. I'm from Bandung Institute of Technology. I wanted to ask, sebenarnya kalau misalkan hypothetically speaking kayak misalnya aku punya kasus di mana IELTS aku nilainya 7,5. Terus aku ngeliat di website IISMA-nya kalau misalkan statistik tahun lalu di Uni A itu mereka nerima awardees yang nilainya IELTS-nya minimal 7.5. Nah, apakah aku apakah mungkin nerima awardees yang nilainya di bawah 7.5 itu supaya aku bisa punya higher chance of getting in? Itu mungkin pertanyaannya. Is it clear, Kak?
Mm-hmm. I think it's a very hard question. Ini mungkin ke seberapa berani mengambil resiko masing-masing ya. Cuman definitely, I wouldn't say that GPA or English test is a deciding factor, I would say that your essay is very important. Kalau misalnya pun kita nilainya mungkin cuma 7,5, pas-pasan sama rata-rata tahun lalu, tapi kalau memang essay kita itu menarik, pengalaman kita menarik, I think that's more important for them. Kalau dari tahun lalu sebenarnya, ini bocoran juga sih. Jadi tahun lalu itu di salah satu grup Telegram atau open chat, ada KUI yang nggak sengaja ngebocorin rubrik IISMA untuk asesor. Jadi di rubrik itu, kalau tahun lalu itu dibagi 4. Jadi ada EPT, ada GPA, sama ada interview, sama ada essay. So each of them is weighted similarly. Jadi nilai EPT itu sebanding dengan nilai essay. Jadi kalau misalnya EPT kita mungkin setaranya 7,5, tapi kalau essay kita bisa 9, bisa 10, dan it will still work. Jadi itu semua rata sebanding. EPT is not more important than your essay, and I think you can compensate with your essay. Tapi if you just want to be sure, then maybe pick the one with the lower EPT, but I wouldn't say that that's a deal breaker for you.
Oke, Kak. Thank you so much.
Okay, so moving on to the next one, ada Christopher Cleon. Bisa on mic.
Oke, thank you atas kesempatannya Kak Davin dan kakak-kakak semua. Aku mungkin perkenalkan diri dulu, aku Christopher Cleon dari angkatan 21. Aku mungkin baru kepikiran pertanyaannya apa. Kalau untuk IISMA tahun lalu itu ada kecenderungan nggak sih yang terima itu kebanyakan angkatan 19 atau sebanding sama angkatan 20? Karena takutnya mungkin pihak IISMA-nya mikir kalau angkatan 20 yang angkatan yang lebih muda itu masih punya kesempatan buat coba lagi tahun depan. Itu aja sih dari aku. Thank you.
Untuk itu nggak ada data untuk itu sih. Cuman dari Warwick sendiri itu kita malahan lebih banyak angkatan semester 4 daripada semester 6. Kalau dari Warwick sendiri 6/4. Cuman untuk the whole IISMA kurang tahu.
Oke, thank you Kak.
Oke, mungkin ini ada yang recent terakhir, ada Devio Pande.
Halo. Halo.
Halo.
Kedengeran ya?
Kedengeran.
Okay, I have a question. So, for context, saya tahun lalu pernah attempt untuk ikut IISMA juga kan ya. Tapi unfortunately I didn't pass. Tapi one of the difficulties I faced was saya kan sekarang major in psychology. Tapi kemarin I wanted to pick the business unit. So the dilemma was I didn't know how to justify studying on a different field on my essay. So that's my first question, I guess. How do you justify studying on a different field? Tapi on the other hand, if justifying it it's hard, then mungkin should I just take units yang mirip kayak psychology? Tapi then again, I've heard that IISMA actually encourages you to study on a different field. So maybe that's where my dilemma lies in. Thank you.
Personally, I think that you're right when you say that IISMA wants you to study something that's different from a major. I think if you look at the IISMA website, like a lot of the remarks is for you to be able to learn something different and to get international exposure. So I think there's two ways to getting around that. First is you talk about non-academic experience. So you explain why you want to go to a university, but more to why you want to go to that region. What is special about that university? Is there a facility? Is there an organization? Or is there something about that country that is very interesting for you? Another way is you kind of need to be smart about how you connect it. So for me, I'm animal science. I said that I want to study climate change because agriculture, climate change, very much related. Then I said I want to study entrepreneurship because even if I created something, if it doesn't make any economic sense, then the innovation won't be popular. So I talk about how there is a lot of innovation in the academic field, but it is not brought to market because scientists are not always the best businessmen. So that is also a way connected. And lastly, for food security, I picked that because agriculture, food. So kind of like that.
That makes sense. Okay, thank you very much, Kak.
Oke, tadi yang terakhir menurutku penting banget ya untuk nge-connect-connectin gitu, ya nggak sih, Mo?
Iya bener banget sih, karena waktu aku apply, aku juga kayak per unitnya tuh kayak aduh nyambunginnya dari mana ya, jadi kayak kita juga sambil nulis esai itu kayak lihat satu course itu dari berbagai macam point of view gitu, jadi jatuhnya.
Oke.
Okay, by the way, we still have a little bit more time. Davin, do you mind if we go through the worksheet yang udah di-share ke teman-teman juga, and maybe you can explain a bit on how to fill in the worksheet?
Okay,
Okay,
sure.
I'll help to share screen. Okay.
Okay, so this is the worksheet made in collaboration with Abroadening. So it's very nice and tidy. So thank you, Abroadening, for that. So I think there is also another worksheet before this by Rifli talking about like how to find your narrative, like finding and knowing yourself, which I think is a very nice worksheet to do before doing this, because then you already know like what is special about you and what narrative can you bring to your essay. But here I start with what your goals are for IISMA. So I think it's very important for you to at least know the short-term goal of what you want to achieve after IISMA. So let's say for me, I do not want to pursue my master's directly. I wanted to work first, or maybe I want to go on an internship, or basically I want to try working first before studying again. So that will definitely be very different compared to someone who wanted to continue master's directly, or maybe someone who wants to volunteer after getting their IISMA experience. Or maybe you're just semester 4 and you're not graduating yet, and you will continue studying for 2 years. In that case, your experience will most likely be very different compared to mine. So I think that's very important for you to just write down first. And then there is B. So A is more of a reflective writing, where you just think about what you want. And then for B, here you write it in words. So just short words of what is important for you. So here I want you to think about your values. So let's say, for instance, you really think about your scores. So maybe you're trying to get perfect GPA, and then you know that your scores will be converted when you come back to Indonesia. Then that is a consideration for you. Another example is maybe graduation timeline, like I mentioned, or maybe experience. Let us say that you are an English literature student and you want to see what the English poets usually write about. Like they are writing about Lake District, like you want to visit Shakespeare's place of birth, you want to see the context in which he wrote his plays, then it might be beneficial for you to go to UK instead of other places. Or maybe you are very interested in fine arts, in European arts, then it makes sense for you to go to Europe. There is also other things like social life, traveling, and also saving money. So this is quite interesting because IISMA provides you with quite the big amount of money. It is standardized to LPTP standards. So it is actually quite a lot of money. And I feel like even for myself, after traveling, I still have a bit of money left over that I can pay for 2 months rent when I come back. Some of my friends save up enough that they can fix their laptop and pay for their SPP. So it also depends. Who knows, you want to save money, you can actually do that via IISMA also. And there's also your personal hobby, interest. Religion, I think, is also very important. Let's say you really want to make sure that all your food is halal, for example, then you might want to make sure that the city you're visiting in has halal brochure and it's very accommodating to, let's say, Muslims. So that is question number 1. So writing about those values is also hopefully helpful for you to be able to think about why your uni is important, like why you choose this, and it will translate into your essay. And then next, this is the guide I made. So it's structured from I1 to 4 in order. So the first order is personal, and then there is country and culture, and then academics, and then competitive, and then others. Okay, 1 to 5, I forgot the 5. So the first one I think is most important because these are the things that I think is non-negotiable. So are you in a rush to graduate? Do you have intention to pursue postgrad in the region? Are you willing to spend your personal saving? Because some region will force you to just pay more. Let's say in UK, I think we need to prepare at least 5 to 8 million rupiah before we want to go ISMA, because ISMA is a reimbursement payout method, right? So let's say for my agent, I need to pay for agent. It's required by ISMA, so I need to pay 3 million for agent. And if you are living outside Java, you need to fly there to go to KBRI. And insurance, you also need to pay for insurance. So there are this kind of small things that you need to make sure. So jangan sampai nanti udah keterima, tiba-tiba karena keterbatasan ini jadi nggak bisa ikut ISMA. So maybe think about that also. Then there's also health conditions, like maybe you just have medical condition that do not allow you to go to cold weather and so on and so on. So I think that is personal. And then there is country and culture. So after personal, I hope you can at least remove several continents off the list. So maybe if you're not able to withstand the cold, then maybe the northern part of the world is excluded. Then there's country and culture. So language, very important. Demography and intention to travel, like how willing are you to travel? And then relating to that is landmarks and history. Is there any historical place or landmarks that you really want to visit? Let's say you want to visit a certain museum, a certain place. And then there's the visa type. Are you visiting a country or a continent? Living cost. Are you willing to spend money out of there, basically? And then personal interest. Yeah, personal interest, I think that's double. But basically, personal interest is maybe, for me, I really like orchestral music. So during my time in UK, I save up my own money to go to a concert. So that's just part of my personal interest. So at this point, hopefully you will know which region you want. Last year, I went through this and I decided I want either UK or US because, yeah, I just want those two regions. So it helped me a lot in selecting my host university. Personal values and religion. Yeah, so maybe there is certain significance in going to a certain region. Let's say, for example, I want to practice my Mandarin, for example, then maybe it might make sense for me to go to Taiwan, and so on and so on. And then there's academics. So I think you can reorder academics and country and culture depending on your priorities. So if you don't really care about the weather, if you don't really care about blending in, all you care is about the ranking. I want to make sure that what I'm learning is the best in the world from the best university, and it's a famous university with a very good academic style, or there's a professor that you really want to study with, then put academics up top. So talking about ranking as prestige, like don't only see the overall ranking, but see what a specific topic it is. So let's say Warwick is, I think, 60 in ranking for general, but if you look at it from just one subject, let's say business, it's number 2. So it depends on which university. And some universities have this very unique departments that just doesn't exist anywhere else. And then there's the modules, the academic style, course linearity for conversion, academic difficulty. Are you taking first year, final year class, and opportunity? So do you have volunteering or any events? In the UK, they have this thing called City of Culture. So every year it changes. So basically, wherever the City of Culture is, it will usually have more events that year. So also something to consider. And then there's facilities like sports facilities, a library, a free bus, and so on. Then there's the EP competitiveness. So as previously asked, like what are the minimum requirements? What are last year's statistics? Is it a new university or an old partner university? And then just the argument whether it's popular and difficult. Like think about it. Like, is it popular? If it's popular, then maybe think about it again. Are you sure? Is it difficult? Look at last year's statistics and so on. And lastly, these two, I do not really know where to put it, so I just added to others. So you can decide. If you're still undecided, you can pick it. So it's cohort size. So it affects how close you are with each other, what kind of class you would be getting in the host university, and how to travel, and the intimacy, and also the duration of exchange. Because if you can go for 6 months, some people might prefer it. Some people might think that 6 months is too long. 4 is just perfect. Your choice. And lastly, I also emphasize like why top 3, why not first and second choice? So the thing is, IISMA changes happen really quickly. So last year, there is universities in the UK that suddenly decide no more Duolingo. So for those who have actually taken Duolingo, they cannot register to those universities. So only TOEFL and IELTS. That happened, I think, 2 weeks prior to the deadline. Some university also pull out of the program. Just H-5 deadline, boom, suddenly gone. For those who want to join this, you need to register for another. And that's just suddenly, imagine you not receiving that broadcast, and then on the final day when you want to enter your choices, suddenly your choice is gone. So that happened also. There is also increased living costs due to inflation. The example I gave was Dublin. So it took up to 60% of their monthly budget, so which was quite a lot. I think they needed to add a bit of their own personal saving to live in the UK. And lastly, is changes due to COVID, conflict, unforeseen circumstances. Sometimes that happens. So it will be ideal if you have 3. So even if your first 2 choices is gone, you have a backup. Yeah, basically that's all about the worksheet. Hopefully it'll be useful in helping you to, if you're starting from scratch, then at least you have a general overview of where you want to go.
Wah, thank you so much, Davin, for the explanation of the worksheet. Dan aku di sini sama Devi juga mungkin encourage teman-teman buat coba mungkin ya isi worksheetnya, because it will help you not just to pick your host uni, but at the same time also preparing for the essay as well, because you need to reflect a lot of things juga. Oke, nah mungkin sebelum kita move on to the last session, which is the networking one, kita ada feedback form yang nanti mungkin ada yang bisa bantu buat share linknya di chat juga. Nah, mungkin kita dari Abroadening juga minta tolong teman-teman buat isi feedback formnya, because we would love to hear from you dan how we can improve for the next event juga. Gitu. Terus mungkin Devi can explain about this one.
Oke, jadi buat teman-teman semua, mungkin beberapa ada yang belum tahu ya, kayak Discord tuh apa, atau mungkin ada yang belum punya akunnya gitu. Cepetan deh sekarang abis webinar ini bikin Discord, karena we have upcoming events on Discord yang pastinya seru juga dan bakal berguna juga buat IISMA application teman-teman di tahun ini. Gitu sih. Jadi kalau misalnya kalian ada pertanyaan nanti ini misalnya baru pop up gitu ya di kepala kalian, questionnya bisa kalian drop juga di Discord, karena it's a community, so teman-teman yang lain juga bisa lihat dan mungkin ada yang tahu jadi bisa bantu jawab gitu. Oke. Mungkin nih
dan
kita bisa
kita
next
di
nih.
Discord juga ada itu nggak sih, Dev? Spill dikit, di Discord juga bakal mau ada something kita ngobrol-ngobrol soal IISMA gitu kan.
Oke. Iya, apalagi kayaknya gimana ya, ngobrol-ngobrol enaknya di malam minggu gitu nggak sih? Ya kan?
Yeah.
Ngobrolin IISMA, waduh. Kayak teman-teman kalau malam minggunya mungkin sepi gitu, nggak apa-apa, karena langsung ke Discord aja, karena kita bakal ada sesuatu tuh di Discord. Jadi pokoknya bikin dulu akunnya, terus join our Discord, oke?
Okay, and don't forget to subscribe to our newsletter juga. Oke, mungkin sebelum kita move to the networking session, mungkin kita foto dulu kali ya.
Oke, boleh. Yuk
Oke,
on cam
yuk
teman-teman.
on cam.
Yang bisa pakai verbal background-nya pakai aja guys. Alright, nih teman-teman, yuk on cam yang lain. Betul. Gak apa-apa kok, mungkin dia yang pakai hoodie doang atau pakai selimut doang gitu nggak apa-apa guys. Tenang, ini bukan kelas ya, dan aku bukan dosen yang menyuruh kalian on cam. Jadi kita mau foto bareng aja kok.
Oke, kita tunggu bentar lagi kali ya.
Sampai slide 1 full ini kali ya.
Boleh. Yuk.
Oke, ayo teman-teman. Kita foto bareng.
Oke, mungkin bisa kita foto aja kali ya. Masih ada yang mau on cam lagi nggak nih?
Kalau misalnya mungkin udah bisa nih, kita mulai kali ya
Oke.
fotonya. Oke, aku hitung ya teman-teman. 1, 2, 3. Oke, mungkin sekarang ke slide 2 ya. 1, 2, 3. Oke, dan yang terakhir nih. 1, 2, 3. Oke. Mungkin next nih. Kayaknya beberapa udah ada yang nunggu ya mungkin. Sebenarnya sekarang udah selesai ya, Mal?
Iya, benar nih. Tapi kita ada networking session. Di sini ada Davin, ada Ansom, juga ada aku. Nanti kita bakal open breakout room dan teman-teman bisa pilih aja breakout room mana yang teman-teman pengen join, dan kita bisa kenal-kenalan, bisa tanya-tanya juga kalau masih ada yang mau ditanyain, dan bisa basically kayak extended Q&A session, tapi juga opportunity buat kita buat saling kenal satu sama lain. Oke, wait. Give me a moment. Aku buka breakout room-nya dulu.
Tuh bisa stay juga nih di main room kalau ada yang gabut atau mau tanya-tanya juga soal Abroadening, nanti bisa tanyain ke RC. Oke, sambil nunggu breakout room-nya sama Maura, nanti teman-teman bisa join ya. Nanti kayak misal ada yang interested in UK juga, atau malah pengen ke Warwick juga, itu bisa ikut ke networking session setelah ini. Dan sebenarnya sekarang udah selesai ya acaranya, jadi thank you for coming everyone. Jadi mungkin ada beberapa yang udah punya schedule lain setelah ini, jadi boleh banget untuk leave, tapi mungkin beberapa dari teman-teman ada yang masih penasaran nih sama topik kita kali ini, bisa banget ikutan speedy networking session. Jadi thank you so much everyone yang udah datang hari ini. Thank you juga Davin for the insightful explanation ya.
Thank you.
Okay, see you guys in the breakout room.
Okay.